Merry Christmas. I'll get in trouble for that, but it's okay.
It looked as if maybe you'd turned a corner a couple of weeks ago. Things have changed a bit since then. 2 away games, 6 goals conceded. Do you feel you're back to square one?
Not square one, but I certainly feel the frustration that every time we look on the brink of making a couple of steps forward, we usually end up going a little bit backwards. We make some mistakes. Certainly this idea when a match starts of what happens, how do we start? I think that part's been good. I think we've started games pretty well, but oftentimes we still concede first. I've gone back and looked at, I did a little bit of research on everything that's happened during the year when you have some days off. And one of the things that sticks out is 17 matches, 1-0-0. So that means 16 times somebody scores first. And we've scored first 4 times. I think that's Chelsea and Liverpool, I think, and Stoke and Palace. So that means 12 times we've conceded first. And then you look and see what happens when it's 0-1. How do we handle that? So, part of the reason I do that is that you're trying to make sure players understand what critical moments in games are all about. It's normal that you work throughout the week. You have a plan for what you want to do against an opponent. You start the game. You feel like you need energy. You want to try to establish some control. Some of those things have actually been pretty good of late. But somewhere in there, either we let our guard down or we get caught where with a mistake or something like that. And so, our ability now to be more consistent, when we talk about putting a run of games together, consistency is the most important thing.
Away from technical issues on the field, in terms of some of the pundits' criticisms of the club lately, they've been about attitude, that you're too soft, too nice, both physically and mentally as well. Is that fair? Are you too soft as a club?
I think there's been games where we haven't had a hard enough edge. So in that respect, there's games where I agree with that. And, our ability to compete, to understand in different parts of the game, closing down faster, winning more duels, those are things that tip the scale a little bit one way or another. So those are things that we've looked at. I think we've had moments when those things have improved, but there are still times where that part has to also be more consistent.
So when Gary Lineker said the other day that if there was any team you'd want to play in the Premier League at the moment, it would be Swansea, you know where he's coming from?
I think there are days that's true, and I think that we continue to work hard to make sure that more and more that's not the case. So again, I think we've had some games where it wasn't true. But it does play into what I said a second ago. Both West Brom and Middlesbrough. West Brom, were we easy to play against in the first half? I don't think so. Okay, I think we had a good first half. But a couple minutes into the second half, when you give up a goal on a set piece, the game changes. At that point, can you figure out how to manage things and stick in the game? And over a 10-minute period, we let it get away from us. Middlesbrough, it's not the first half, but it's probably 15 minutes. And what needs to be said is in those 15 minutes, we have some advantages. We have some situations where we can be more dangerous and we can be the team to take the lead first. But so again, it's important to understand that even when I talk about conceding, it goes with attacking. All right, this is all connected. That you have chances when you play in good stretches to take the lead. When you don't, then you have to try to play 0-0 as long as possible. Again, Middlesbrough, 17 minutes, a situation where 1 second it looks like we're in control. We've recovered the ball. We start to build our attack again. we lose one and we make a couple of rash decisions, and now we've got to deal with the play in the box, and we don't do well enough. And then, at that point, 0-1 again. What happens? And I think we understood. Let's see if we can hang in there. Second goal against Middlesbrough, the way that comes about between the confusion on the call and that part of it. But look, it's all the same. It's competing. It's concentration. It's understanding that over 90 minutes, you can't let your guard down. You have to deal with things that don't go your way. So, yeah, that part of us has to improve. That is the reason that we've been so inconsistent. That's the reason that we've had so many times where if we do go down too quickly, we give up another one. So I think there's definite situations that fit.
Looking at the West Ham game, Bob, they're often a team that have an aerial threat with Andy Carroll. That's an aspect the team struggled with at West Brom. How are you going to cope with Andy Carroll?
Andy Carroll obviously likes to drift to the back post. And so we've got to do a very good job to make sure that our central defenders are aware when he drifts away. We don't want to leave that responsibility always with the outside backs. So tactically, we've got to get that part right because that is a big part of their game when he comes on the field.
What have you made of West Ham? Have you been surprised that they struggled?
I think everyone's been a little surprised. It's still a talented team. Slaven Bilic is a good manager. But when we prepare, we look at some of the recent matches where we've seen some improvement. We've talked now about Andy Carroll and the difference that he makes when he comes on the field. It gives them a different dimension. There's always guys in every team that you have to pay extra attention to. Dimitri Payet, both in the run of the game and also his free kicks. So they have some players that obviously are talented, and we have to, as we would for any game, be on top of those details.
Encouraged by the fact that they seem quite vulnerable often, even against Hull at the weekend, they perhaps could have conceded quite a few.
Yeah, I thought Hull played well, and in the attack ability for us to still create more. If you were to look at everything that's gone on, I think especially in the 10 games when I've been around, a lot of it has come down to making plays in both penalty areas and inside the box. I mean, I think at times our build-up play has been good. I think it's improved. I think there's been more games of good periods of possession, but the end product isn't always what it should be. And then, again, as much as we talk about the fact that we have to improve defensively, it's been strange that many of the games we've not conceded that many chances. And so I think we're all tired of looking at the statistics that show 4 or 5 chances or 4 shots on goal and 3 goals or something like that. There's a part to that which on one hand means we're doing enough good things that we're not just letting teams come through and create chance after chance, but it still puts under the microscope the idea that now in certain situations our pure defending has to improve.
Can I ask you, Bob, about some of the criticism that you've taken personally over the last week or so?
Sure.
Particularly about the terminology that you've used, and it's been viewed in some quarters as American sports terminology. Do you see that as just another stick to beat you with because you're not winning? Or is it something that you knew was there and have guarded against doing in the time you've been here?
No, look, you guys listen to me once a week, some of you twice. All right, 95% of my football vocabulary fits without a problem. But there are other terms in football that come from different places. I have German coaching friends that use the word forechecking in terms of pressing. All right, it's a hockey word, all right, hockey phrase, but they use that. There are, when I was in Norway, the organization of a team when you have the ball, they call offensive marking, right? Some places call that rest defense. So football vocabulary also has phrases that come from different places. Look, when I'm speaking normally, I talk about home form, I talk about away form. But there is a part in American sports, if the San Antonio Spurs have a bad game playing outside of San Antonio, Greg Popovich will say sometimes we're not good enough on the road. So yeah, every now and then a little of that comes out of me, but not too much. And the idea that it draws attention, honestly, I don't even know what to say. And then look, it's part of the deal. I had a situation after a game in France where I said, it's important to get a clean sheet. And they looked at me and said, what's a clean sheet? Right? So, this is football. But again, 95% of my football vocabulary fits without any question. And every now and then, there's something that comes out. And look, it wouldn't make sense if I sounded exactly like everybody else. I come in to be myself. I'm a football man, so like I said, most of the way I discuss football fits with everybody else. But you pick up different things. If I'm spending my time going through a game and making different notes on situations, I also abbreviate, and so. One of the goal kick, I just put GK, free kick, FK. And so, yeah, every now and then when I'm writing something about a penalty, I write PK, all right? And it's not that I use that phrase all the time, but, you make abbreviations, you make notes. And then when push comes to shove, you try to make sure that your message resonates and is clear with the players. That's what counts.
But if you were in the top 10, do you think people wouldn't care, PK or not?
I think, as I've said since the start, I knew this was a challenge. All right. The biggest part of this challenge has nothing to do with whether I say penalty or pitch or field or whatever. The biggest part of this challenge is exactly the same as the day I walked in the door. All right. It's a team that. Trying to turn a team around a little bit, a team that's been down on its luck, a team that hasn't been in its best form, a team that goes through a tough stretch. You could say a club that has gone through tough periods. And so I knew coming in that was a challenge, and I'm just as motivated and determined about the challenge as the day I got here. So that's that.
Everybody fit?
We'll see whether Fede makes it. He's back in training a little bit. That's positive. Key is back in full training, so that's also a positive. So, yeah, we're getting closer.
So those two could be available. They both had broken toes?
Yes, they both had broken toes.
Can I just ask you, Bob, about transfer targets? You talked last week about Tom Carroll being a player that was of interest to you in terms of you discussed him. Is Carl Jenkinson a player that's been discussed by you? Is he of interest to you?
Again, somehow what happens is you ask, not you specifically, but I get asked about players whether their names have come up. And then if I say, yes, that player has been discussed, then the next day it says that player is of interest to me. It's subtle, but it's not exactly the same. We have had discussions on many players. Again, I think I've tried to be very open that if you throw a name at me and it's been discussed, I typically say yes. There is a part, too, that again, when players now are still with other clubs, you have to be a little bit careful. So, again, I think we have had discussions on many different players. That's normal. Transfer windows change every second. Players' names go on and off the board depending upon circumstances. You read things. Sometimes you wonder if there's any truth to what you read because it's put out by different people. So in the moment, we continue to look for every way we can to improve our squad. That's important.
And having met and spent some time with the owners last week, do you think you're going to be more active in January than perhaps you imagine you might be a few weeks ago?
I think that we all have looked hard at the situation that we're in. We've all discussed how did it get to that point. So along the way, players that went out, players that came in, how strong are we? Are we satisfied that what we have is going to give us a good chance to still get ourselves back into the thick of things? And I think at the end of that, there's a real discussion that we have to improve. So again, is that bigger than a few weeks ago? Maybe. But I still think that the discussions haven't drastically changed by the odd result. I think the discussions have been pretty consistent that January was going to be important to improve the team, and I think that's still the case.
Just lastly from me, Bob, what would your message to fans be at the end of this year when they're concerned about the position of the team and they're concerned about the prospect of relegation? What would you say to those fans over the next course of the next few games?
I would say that I understand your frustration. It's been a difficult year from the start until the whistle at Middlesbrough. And we are working hard to improve. We understand that the level's not been good enough. And we are committed to fighting to the end to stay in the Premier League.
Thanks, Bob.
Hi, Bob. On January, I know we're probably going to be throwing names at you for a good month or so.
Okay.
But it was mentioned in France that you might have met your former Lav striker, Lise Mousset, who's at Bournemouth now. Is there any truth in that?
It was mentioned that I did what?
That you met.
That I met. I have not seen Lee since he left for Bournemouth.
Right. So we can discount the possibility of signing him.
You asked me if I've met with him, and I told you I've not met Lee since he left for. No, actually, I stand corrected on one thing. He came back for a game in Le Havre, so during an international break. So I saw him one time since then, but that was a while ago.
And just on January as well, because we've got a couple of games left before that window opens. Do you feel that these two games perhaps decide whether you'll get the chance to make those signings in January, that your future perhaps depends on these next two games?
Maybe. I never know how that works, and I don't spend much time thinking about it. So it's football. It's I've been here for 10 games, and when I said before, when I arrived, I knew it was a challenge. I think we've had moments along the way where we've thought we were close to making a big step forward. We've left some points on the table in those 10 games. Maybe if we hadn't left points on the table, maybe the discussion would be different. But look, it's football. And every week I say the same thing, that that's out of my control. And the only thing that I focus on is the team, the work, the preparation, trying to make sure everybody's determined and ready to fight together, because I think one of the most important things in leadership is simple, and that is that when a team has gone through a rough stretch, there's a tendency that there are some guys in there that start to get down. And you have to make sure that as a group, everybody understands that we've got to be together. It won't be easy, but at the same time, we can do it. And I find my own ways one-on-one and with the group to reinforce that message every day. And we look forward now to the next opportunity on Boxing Day.
Do you feel that's an area you might want to strengthen in January, just in terms of leadership? Do you think there's perhaps just a deficit in leadership in that squad?
We've talked about it. It's been a simple discussion in the past that a player like Ashley Williams was an important leader in the defense. Whoever played in the back line knew that now he was going to organize things. And so when you lose a player like that, it puts responsibility on others. I think in different games, depending upon who you pick, players try to take more responsibility. And so that's a good thing. But when I see positives from a player like Alfie Mawson, I also know that the number of Premier League games that he has to draw upon wouldn't be the same as Ashley Williams. So experience, some leadership, players that maybe understand when you're fighting till the end to stay up, what that feels like. But when we discuss those kind of things, keep in mind that there are still some good leaders in the team. And I've referenced Leon Britton, I've referenced Angel Rangel. So, Leon and Angel are good guys. They come in every day. They try to look around, make sure that others are going in the right direction. And I've seen others trying to step up. So, yeah, on one hand, I do think the leadership experience can be important for us, but what happens is we still try to take what we have every day and figure out the right way to improve and to challenge guys and get them to step up and see what happens.
Then on a more kind of practical or technical level, you mentioned that you'd like to strengthen the team from back to front in recent weeks. Have you honed in on any particular areas of the team that you think that need strengthening in January?
I give the same answers every week. Sure, I think we could use possibly a center back. Right? I still talk about a midfielder who, depending upon who he's playing with and what the game looks like, gives us a greater presence in midfield. And in the attacking part of the field, I mentioned earlier that I see advantages created every game where I still don't think that our final ideas, our final moves, our decisions of when to come inside, when to go outside, when to pass, when to cross, I think those things need to get better. So could we find an attacking player who can give us some more of that? Can we find an attacking player who is a little bit more of a threat to get behind the defense? Sometimes I think we can still utilize even the speed we have more in that regard. Early in the match against Middlesbrough, I think it's 1 minute in. They step up and try to press. Lucas plays a ball out to the right. Angel flicks a header on, and now Fernando's up in the air. He wins the duel and mows off behind him. And for a minute, you think, not for a minute, for a second, you think this is now a real chance. But we don't take that in and get all the way to the goal. That's a moment that's lost. And so Mo ends up slowing down, and then we have a chance still to find the right ball into the box, and it gets cut out. And so, we've got to improve on both sides. And that's where I talk about what happens in the final third or what happens in the penalty area on both sides, because I still think that, quite frankly, that's where a lot of games get determined.
And just finally, is this your first experience of a Christmas time fixture, and if so, what will your plans be for Christmas Day and the lead up to the game?
Well, when Michael was playing in Heronveen, they played over the Christmas holidays, and as a family, we were there, so that was fun. I've watched many Christmas periods on television from different parts of the world, and I've always enjoyed that. And I'm excited to, in the next few days, mix what Christmas is all about, both in terms of family and then how that also is important within a team and within a club, with an important match on Boxing Day.
Okay, thanks.
Bob, a number of fans have been saying that the club really does have to spend big in this transfer window, spend your way out of trouble. I know you've been saying you've been having discussions, sort of very regular discussions with the owners and board about the sort of players, identifying the sort of players you want. What has your message been to the board? Do you echo that message? Do they need to really put their money on the line here now in terms of January, because it's notoriously an expensive and an odd window sometimes?
January is a challenge. It's an odd window. But as I've said, everybody understands that it's extra important for us this time around. So there is an understanding that we will need to spend. At the end of it all, every situation gets thoroughly analyzed, and then you determine still at a certain price, is that player worth it? Are we ready to spend that amount for that player? So it's not easy to sit and now give out numbers and things like that, because I think, again, every time you move along the discussion with a player, then you get to the part of, can it happen? What will it take? Does it make sense? All that type of discussion. So I think everybody's prepared for that. And then in the final word, we'll see what happens.
It's obviously not something that came under your control, but I'm looking particularly at the example of Joe Allen in the summer, where the club was supposedly interested in him before the Euros. Obviously his price went up after the Euros, and it seemed to be that the price wasn't going to be paid. Is that something that perhaps you might, I mean, I know the board are experienced, but is that something that you might throw into the mix as well, to caution them not to wait too long sometimes, to feel, right, okay, the money has got to be spent, rather than thinking, let's see if we can get it sort of at a better bar?
Sure, if there's a player that now is available and you are absolutely convinced he's going to make the squad better, then that's the manager's job, to push and try to see if you can convince others that we need to spend for this player. And so I wasn't around for the Joe Allen situation, as you mentioned, but without giving names, I understand that almost every player that you get to a real discussion about is still going to be, is it worth it? Are we going to spend? That kind of thing. Is value what we think it should be? This is what happens in the transfer window. I think every club has to make those type of difficult decisions.
But you're not getting the sort of vibe that you're going to be slightly hamstrung by, I mean, this club historically has been, it is very well run, has been fairly cautious on occasions. Do you worry that could be a double-edged sword, that you could end up being hamstrung by that in this window?
The discussions so far have still been positive, that we need to improve. Again, Jason and Steve understand the responsibility that they have now as owners in this window. So we'll see how everything plays out. But I think that there's clear understanding that we must work in a good way.
Thank you for that. Just briefly with the players, we were talking to Neil Taylor yesterday, and he was saying that he feels the problem has been that the team hasn't really clicked as well as they should have this season, and he feels that the only way they can get out of it is to work harder. Is that something you would agree with? Is it just a case of upping the ante even more in training, or do you feel that maybe there's a greater malaise than that?
As a starting point, your mentality, how hard you work on the field, your ability to compete for 90 minutes. If you want to look at physical data and now say, how much are we running? You absolutely know that those things are important. But it's football. So that also means that you can run a lot, but that doesn't guarantee you win duels. Or that means sometimes you can run yourself and put yourself in a bad position. So there's this part of football that, I use this expression a lot. There's a package of many things. And so I'm not one. When I look back on games, when I show things to the team and to players, it's easy to just go to the goals against and show at the very end what happened. I'll give you an example. The other day, we can discuss the second goal forever with the confusion on the throw-in and that type of thing. But before the ball gets out on that side, we have a throw-in. Neil Taylor plays up to somebody. It comes back to Neil, and Neil, under pressure, puts it all the way up the field. And their central defender chases it down and first times it back into our area. And now Alfie, it's coming, and now it's coming right to Alfie. And Alfie is a central defender, one of our best players in the air. And as Alfie goes to head the ball, instead of heading the ball as far and high and up the field as possible, he ends up heading one that goes almost due left. And then that turns into the situation where their player takes it down, back heels it, doesn't go off of Neil, but Jay's not sure. And now as Jay chases it, instead of just grabbing the ball and saying it's ours, he's not sure, so he kicks it away, and then it hits the signboards and bounces right back to their defender, and he throws it in, and the next thing you know, we've given up a penalty. When something like that happens, you look at halftime, I was beside myself, all right? And then I'm now saying, don't be naive. When it's a throw-in, just grab the ball, assume it's ours. But those are not things that, as you go through a week of training, that that's just, Jay Fulton's done a very good job for us. Alfie Mawson now is a young defender, I think, is going in a good direction. So that's not criticism of either one of those players. But sometimes when you look back and say what needs to improve, you start with this idea of working hard, but then I have my expression. I talk about making plays, all right? Again, maybe I'm going to get in trouble because that might sound American, but nonetheless, good teams make plays. Sometimes they do it because the structure is perfect. Sometimes it means that the ball turns over and the structure is not perfect, but somebody reacts in the right way, slides, puts out the fire, and the whole thing is done, and you can then reorganize yourself. In the midst of everything, in 10 games for me, I still don't think we make enough plays. And I think that there are times that we're a little bit where we lose our concentration or we let down a little bit, and then the slightest play, even when it looks like we're set up in a very good way, the slightest play leads to a chance. I'm describing one goal. I've gone back through every goal we've given up in these 10 games and looked closely, and so I see them. I see them in my sleep every night. But trying to just help figure out with our team how we can improve in these small areas. And again, I think in recent weeks, our structure has improved. So what does that mean? That when we have the ball and now we're going forward, I don't think we're poorly organized. I think when the ball turns over, more often than not, we're very well organized. But even if you're in the right position, that doesn't mean the play's over. You still have to then finish it, react. You have to make plays when you create advantages going forward that lead to real chances and goals. You have to be able to put out some emergency situations that might go the other way. And for me right now, that's number one. We have to, yes, stay committed, still understand that as a team where our margin for winning is small, we have to compete and work hard. And then we have to have the confidence that in key moments we make plays.
So summing it up, you're calling for more footballing intelligence, really?
More footballing intelligence, more football courage, more football, yeah.
Very best of luck with both games and happy Christmas.
Thank you. Happy Christmas. What is it? Natalie Clowen? Is that Natalie Clowen? Okay. There we go. All right.
Good effort.
Sorry.